and in case if you need to, refer back to the video, okay, in case you miss out anything, and then you can watch back the video so that you can get a clearer understanding of what we are supposed to do. All right, okay, so I have started recording the session. I have promised you to share the video on process and procedure, but once I go through the contents, okay, and also the handouts, I found out that it will be easier, it will be better if I'm going to do it online today, okay, and talk to you directly about the topic, okay. So for your information, we are now in week 7. I'm going to share my screen, and then I'm going to share my screen, then perhaps you can also look at the same thing. I have shared this updated weekly planner with you last night, okay. I hope you have gotten the chance to go through it, okay. So right now I am sharing the weekly planner. So we missed this thing out actually in week 6, okay, whereby I have given you the opportunity to complete your first assessment in week 6. So our mixed master break was last week, and this week we are supposed to continue with the flowchart SOP, hierarchical SOP, and SOP reading practice. But don't worry about that, okay. I believe that we can cover both of the topics, okay, within today, all right. So looking at the contents, I believe we can do it today, okay. So we are going to cover the introduction to SOP, looking at the definition of SOP or standard operating procedure, what types of SOP that we have, okay, what will be the format of technical SOP. We are going to have a look at the example of graphical SOP, flowchart SOP, and also hierarchical SOP for today, okay. So just bear with me, those who have just joined the session. If you go to Kalam, okay, if you go to Kalam under week 6, okay, you can download this file, standard operating procedure, the Microsoft Word version, and also standard operating procedure, the PowerPoint version for today's lesson, okay. And I have also asked some of your friends who joined earlier to watch this video, why do we need SOP? So that once you have watched this video, you will have a clearer understanding what does it mean by SOP and why do we have to have SOP. Okay, so you can watch it later. Okay, so before we go into detail of what we are going to learn today, let me firstly check the attendance for our class today. Okay, so again, as usual, once I call upon your name, just reply by saying yes. Okay, right. Nick Adli Afif, are you here?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. Muhammad Hafiz Mustaqim. Muhammad Hafiz Mustaqim. All right, never mind. Nurul Anisa, are you here?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Anawin. Anawin, are you here? All right, never mind. Muhammad Najmi Naim. Muhammad Najmi Naim. Okay. Muhammad Saiful Azani.
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. Muhammad Muazzam.
Yes, sir.
Okay, Muhammad Hazlami.
Yes, sir.
Muhammad Zarif Aidid.
Yes, sir.
Muhammad Syahmi bin Muhammad Jailani.
Yes, sir.
Muhammad Akil.
Yes, sir.
Okay, Ahmad Imran.
Yes, sir.
Muhammad Adham Syahmi.
Yes, sir.
Muhammad Luqman Hakim. Muhammad Luqman Hakim, are you here? Right, never mind. Okay, Muhammad Farhan Hakimi.
Yes, sir.
Okay, Ahmad Syahmi.
Yes, sir.
Alright, Muhammad Al-Haziz. Luqman Hakim, you are having microphone problem? Okay, Luqman Hakim. Check your Okay, 14, you are here. Alright, Muhammad Al-Haziq, you are here, right? Muhammad Al-Haziq, are you here? Al-Haziq is not here. Okay, Muhammad Hazin bin Abdul Rahim. Muhammad Hazin. Okay, not here yet. Muhammad Solihin.
Yes, sir.
Alright, great. Okay, Muhammad Faris. Muhammad Faris bin Abu Hassan.
Yes, sir.
Okay, Muhammad Haikal Hafiz.
Yes, sir.
Okay, Raja Hafizuddin.
Yes, sir.
Alright, Ali Imran.
Yes, sir.
Hidayah.
Yes, sir.
Wan Nur Faris Iskandar. Wan Nur Faris Iskandar. Okay, Wan Nur Faris Iskandar is not here. Abdul Rahman bin Muhammad Hussein.
Yes, sir.
Alright, Nurul Shazwani Izian.
Sir, Shazwani is at the toilet.
Okay, she went to the toilet. Alright, she went to the ladies. Jessica, are you here? Jessica? Right, never mind. I can double check about it later on. Okay? Alright, so now we are in week 7. Okay, we are going to actually start with the introduction to SOP. And then we are going to have a look at the example of graphical SOP, flowchart SOP, and hierarchical SOP. Okay, and we are going to discuss about your next assessment. Okay, your next assessment later on, not now. Okay, not today. All right. So just to let you know, we are going to do that. Okay. So let me switch to my other device here, and please have a look at the PowerPoint file that you have taken from Kalam. Okay. All right. So we are now looking at standard operating procedure. Okay. Can you see my screen, class?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right. So this is not really new to you because we have listened to SOP, I believe, since 2019. I mean, like, we have listened to it many times because of COVID-19. Okay, because of COVID-19 pandemic. So standard operating procedure is no longer something new to you. And I believe that you know about it because, how to say it, it is common, okay? But in technical communication, we are going to have a look at how it can be helpful for you, okay? What does it mean by standard operating procedure? And since that we are in the new topic, which is on process and procedure, and how does it apply to your learning, okay? Right. So after you have watched the clip, okay, the clip on why do we need SOP in Kalam, okay. Number one, you will know the importance, okay, of having SOP. So why do we need to have SOP? Okay. So maybe to make sure that we can avoid injuries, okay, or by following the SOP, we can reduce the cost or maintain the cost or operational cost, okay, for example. And why it is important? So that we can perform the task, I mean, like the process again and again without having any problem, okay. So that are some of the importance of having the SOP. Okay, number two, which will be the best way to follow a certain procedure. Okay, if you notice, maybe, okay, when you're going to perform a task, maybe you're going to have like different options. Okay, for example, A, B, and maybe C. All right. So after you have performed the task using method A or method B or method C, then you will determine which method will be the most applicable. Okay, applicable here meaning that it is going to be the most suitable. All right. So of course, when you are dealing with SOP, sometimes it is not really practical. So you have to create a new one, or you have to come up with a new one. Okay. And then number 3, what needs to be in an SOP and why? Okay. Right. For example, if you are talking about 2021, okay, people normally go for graphics, okay, or images. Okay, graphic or images. Then, what kind of contents or what kind of information that you need to have in the SOP? So when you have the graphics or the images, it follows by having the instructions. Okay, so that are the contents of SOP. All right, so this is based on what you have watched in the video. Okay, but what do you mean by SOP actually? Okay, so SOP is actually a document. Remember, it is going to be document all the time, which describes the operations of a certain work or job. Okay, how are you going to perform the task, or how are you going to perform the job in order to ensure its quality? Okay, so over here, your biggest concern will be the quality. To make sure that you can perform the task greatly or in a good quality, you have to follow the SOP. Okay, all right, it is actually a set of compulsory instructions or systems or procedures or steps, okay, which is written. Remember, document and written. All right, so that other individuals can follow to complete the job safely. Okay, let's say you are the person in charge to create the SOP. So the SOP that you have created can also be used by other individuals, okay, by other individuals here, so that they can complete the job safely. So we talk about avoiding injuries. Okay, it also maximizes operational and production requirements. So for example, you are talking about cost, okay, and how to make sure that it is effective. All right, how to make sure that it is effective. Okay, or you want to reduce injuries. Okay, so you want to reduce injuries. So SOP will help you to make sure that the operational and production requirements, for example, in terms of cost or in terms of injuries, can be fully used. Okay. All right. The purpose of a SOP is to carry out the operation, okay, to carry out the operations correctly and always in the same manner. Okay. For example, if you need to change the flat tire, okay, there are certain steps that you need to do, right? So step number 1, what is it? Step number 2, what is it? Step number 3, what will it be? So always in the same manner, meaning that, okay, let's say if you no longer are going to be in that particular line, so if the others are going to replace you, they will be using the same SOP, and then they will be performing the same task like yours based on the SOP that was written. Okay, so it means that it will always be the same. Okay, because it is proven to be cost effective. For example, it is also proven to reduce injuries. Okay, and it is also proven to maintain the quality. So that is the reason why we have SOP, standard operating procedure. Okay, like what we have nowadays. If you need to go out, you need to wear the face mask. Why? Because it is proven that it can reduce the possibility of getting infected from COVID-19, for example. Or you are required to wash your hand regularly or use hand sanitizer so that you can stop or prevent the spread of COVID-19, for example. Okay, so that is the reason why you need to have the SOP. Okay, a SOP should be available at the workplace, okay, at the place where the work is performed. So let's say if later on you're going to work at a plant, okay, at the plant, all right, the SOP should be there. So let's say this is the SOP. All right. So the original should be kept at a secure place. Okay, maybe the first one, okay, you're going to keep it at the admin office. While working copies should be authenticated with stamps and or signatures of authorized person. Okay, so the second copy that you need to have it at the workplace, you need to make sure that it comes with stamps, okay, meaning that it is authenticated. All right, and you can also have the signatures of the authorized person, with or without. What does it mean by stamps here, class, in Malay? Normally you call it as? Class?
Stamps, sir.
Nope. What does it mean by stamps? You are so use it, okay? You are using it vastly. What is it?
Chop.
Yes, correct. Okay, you use it as the word chop, and this is actually incorrect. So if you're asking me, sir, can you please chop my paper? Or sir, can you please chop my document? You are actually asking me to take the knife and chop the document. So it is actually stamp. Okay, so you need to make sure that one copy of the SOP, which is authenticated with the stamping and or with the signature, should be at the working place. So if it is at the plant, it should be here. All right, the original copy should be in the admin office. All right, but for the working copies, meaning that the one that you are going to refer all the time, should be at the working place. So let's say if it is the production line, so it should be at the production line. If it is at the workshop, it should be at the workshop. All right, so do not use chop anymore, use stamp. So can you please stamp my document? Okay, sir, I need your stamp. Okay, not I need your chop. All right, so just to correct your word usage. Okay. All right, so basically there are two types of SOP: technical SOP and administrative SOP. Let's have a look at what is administrative SOP. So it highlights on the administrative processes, so only on the management part. Okay, management part, such as reviewing contract documentation and determining organizational training needs. So your biggest concern over here is going to be here, technical SOP. Why? Because it focuses more on technical activities such as how to collect a laboratory sample and how to fix the R2 engine. So since that you are learning English for technical communication, and this is what you are going to concentrate or focus more on, technical SOP, because it involves technical or technicalities, okay, issues on technicalities. Right, so the format of technical SOP, right, the format of technical SOP, the format and length of SOP depend on the steps that are taken to describe the procedures of the work. So it can be one page up until 2 to 3 pages, or maybe more. So do not feel surprised if later on for the assessments, for example, your SOP is going to be longer than 2 or 3 pages. It is normal because it depends, okay, on the steps that are taken to describe the procedures of the work. Though that maybe the steps are only 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, but again, when you are going to describe each one of it, it will take a longer area. Okay, so it can include a simple one-page hierarchical steps. Okay, hierarchical is like this: 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Graphic procedures such as flowchart, and even a few pages of procedural process. Okay, so basically we have three types, okay, not three types, three kind of SOP. One is hierarchical SOP, number two is graphic procedures, okay, graphic SOP, and the third one is the flowchart SOP. Okay, an organization will have its own format for SOP, okay, and you can follow the following format as a guide to write your technical SOP. Okay, so just to explain to you, previously we had a discussion with people from the industries, and one of them is from Mercedes-Benz, Pekan. Okay, so we discussed about the possible contents that we need to teach you. So the people or the representative from Mercedes-Benz showed to us the template of the SOP being used. Okay, so just to let you know, what we are teaching you now is actually the basic, okay, the basic or the foundation. Okay, basic or the foundation of SOP. Right? So we are focusing on contents. Okay, more on contents. So it is not a surprise when you're going to start working later on, okay, in different companies. It will have, okay, the different company will have different template of the SOP. So the template can change, but the content is going to be the same. So that is what we are doing now. We are teaching you on how to fill in the components of the SOP or the template based on the acceptable contents. So the contents are the same, and how are you going, or how are you supposed to organize the points are going to be the same, except that later on maybe the template will be different. So do not feel surprised about it, because we have teach you on how to fill in the components. Okay, all right, so SOP can be written by individuals or a team performing processes. So you can create it on your own, or if you are working in a team, you can also create it together. So for example, your second assessment, it is going to be a pair work. So you and your partner, all right, so student A plus student B, all right, you're going to work together, and then you're going to create the SOP based on the questions given. All right. Okay, for example, such processes that involves SOP, shutting down an operation. Okay, so when you shut down the plant, you need to follow certain SOP. Okay, or if you need to repair a faulty electrical circuit, you need to follow the SOP. Okay, for example, if I need to replace a bulb, what should I do? Okay, I need to switch off the main switch that supply the electricity to the house, for example, and then I need to get a ladder, okay, put it nicely, firmly, and then I need to climb the ladder and screw the bulb, okay, the one that is faulty, and then I need to screw in the latest or the new bulb, for instance. Okay, basic milking process. So if you have a farm, okay, and you have cows, and then you want to extract the milk, so you need to follow the SOP of milking process. Or you are going to use the SOP to build a new machine. Okay, here are some examples of SOP that is common, okay, and the one that you are going to have for your next assessment will also be similar. Okay. All right, who should write SOP? So people who will perform or has performed the job. Can you explain to me about this? Who will perform and who has performed the job? Anyone? Class? Class, are you still there?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
What does it mean by who will perform and who has performed the job? What does it mean by that?
People that doing the job.
Authorities.
Okay. And then? Okay, all right. Let me help you. So people who will perform the job. Let's say if you start working with a company and there is no SOP yet. So you will be the first person performing the job. Okay. So since that there is no SOP, you will create SOP so that you can perform the task. So people who will perform, meaning that you are going to create the SOP. People who has performed the job, okay, maybe you are working with company A, and then, okay, you found out that there is an existing SOP over there. Okay, the SOP is already there. So you're going to use the SOP, the same SOP being used by other person, the person before you, and he or she has performed the job using the SOP. So you're going to use the same thing. Okay, so over here has performed the job. Maybe once you have performed the job using the SOP, and then you found out that maybe you can do some amendment or correction or improvisation, then you're going to write the new SOP. Okay, so here who will perform? No SOP at all. Okay, no SOP at all. But over here, maybe the SOP is there, but you can do some improvisation. You do the correction, for example. Okay, right. People who work together on a job, okay, anybody related with the task, okay, for example, the engineers, technicians, maintenance or equipment personnel, okay. So of course, when you're going to start working, right, in any institution, you're going to work in a group, okay, or team, okay, group or team. Then you're going to use the SOP so that everyone in the team or everyone in the group can perform the task. Okay, for people who supervise other people doing the job. Okay, supervise here meaning that, let's say if you are the superior or the senior, and then you wanted to observe your junior, okay, your subordinate work, all right, then you're going to create the SOP so that they can follow or perform the task accordingly. Okay, safety and health officer, let's say if they want to make sure that you follow the rules and regulations, okay, on waste disposal, for example. So you don't have the expertise, okay? So these people, the safety and health officer, they are going to create the SOP so that you can follow it for the purpose of waste disposal, for example. Okay, technical writers, for instance, okay, they are going to write manual on how to use the product, okay, or maybe the SOP on review or feedback of the product or the process. Okay, this is on technical writers. You have any questions so far, class? Class, is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right, let's move on to the next slide. Okay, who is SOP for? All right, SOP is useful for the person who will perform a particular job, such as the managers, engineers, planners, safety officers, environmental regulators, company representatives, and anybody performing the work. So managers, you know, because they are managing it. Okay, when they are managing it, maybe in terms of administrative or administration. So they want to see whether you are following the SOP and you are actually optimizing the work, okay, or the sources that you have. Engineers, okay, just to make sure, engineers and planners, okay, maybe to make sure that the SOP will be helpful in performing the task, okay. In performing the task, all right. For safety officers and environmental regulators, maybe they wanted to know whether you follow the regulations. All right, so they will see or they will look at your SOP, the one that you have created, or maybe the one existed in the company, and to check whether the SOP comply to the regulations for safety and also comply to the regulation of environmental issues. Okay, for company representatives, maybe this is for example like assessment 1, okay, the exhibition. Okay, let's say if you want to exhibit the product or the process or the manufacturing process in your company, then the company representative will require the SOP so that they can explain it to the client. All right. So SOP can be for anyone in the workplace. Okay. When to write and test the SOP. So you need to write and test it before a job is begun. Okay. So before you start with the project or before you start performing the task, you need to write and test the SOP. So maybe you have option A, B, and C. So you're going to check 3 of it and which one is going to be the most suitable. Okay, test it before putting it into final application. So you have option A, B, and C. You run it, which one is going to be the most suitable, and then you put it here. Okay, final application. So perhaps A and B is not suitable. C is going to be the most suitable process or procedure. The SOP is going to be the most applicable when you're going to perform the task. So you're going to use method C. Right. Revise it after a trial of the job is performed. So you have A, B, and C over here. Right. And then A and B is not applicable at all. C is okay, but you need to do or you need to add in some more instructions. So you are going to use C, but you need to put some additional information, perhaps. Okay. Right. So you also need to revise it when there is any change to the process or even equipment used. For example, all right, your company is using machine A. And after several years, they plan to change it to a latest machine, okay, machine B. And the procedures may be shorter than the one in machine A. So you need to revise it, okay? Once you switch to the new machine, for example, you need to revise the SOP because the procedures might be different, okay? And then rewrite it when new information indicates new process, okay? You need to write it back. Let's say if you put in new information, right, and the outcome will be different. Okay, so maybe let's say this is step number 1. Previously, it goes to A. So after some additional information that you put into the SOP, the new outcome is going to be B. So you cannot use the same SOP, then you need to change it to the new one. Okay, because the outcome will be different. Okay, the same goes over here. Rewrite it when new information suggests new performance. All right, so let's say if you put substance A before this, it's going to be the outcome is outcome A. Okay, after buying a new machine and you put substance A, it is going to be outcome B. So you need to change or rewrite the SOP and update it regularly based on internal and external factors. Internal, for example, changes in operational procedures. Okay, this will be internal. External, perhaps, okay, changes in raw materials, for instance. Okay, or you don't have to use the same machine again. You are using a different machine, so that will be also external factors. Okay, or maybe there is a new regulation being created by the environmental what do you call it, regulators. So they come up with new method, so you have to follow the new method, then you have to update your SOP. Okay, for effective writing of the SOP, you need to use short sentences. Okay, because when you use long sentences, okay, it is going to be harder to understand and tend to include more than one step. So avoid long sentences. Okay, short sentences will be easier to understand. Okay, and do not forget to use imperative, because imperative, it is going to be command. Okay, you are asking people to perform the task. So switch off the light rather than the lights need to be switched off. It's going to be better. So we are going to have a look at the example over here. Okay, so this is in the passive form. The weight of feed refusals should be recorded in the feeder notebook. So in imperative form, record the weight of feed refusals in the feeder notebook. So record here falls under action verb. So similar like your first assessment, you need to use imperative when you are writing the SOP. Okay, you need to use record rather than, you need to use imperative rather than using passive form. Okay, because when you use imperative, this is actually giving command to the people to perform the task. Okay, make sure that the contents are concise. Concise meaning accurate. Okay, so write in a few words as possible. So meaning that less words, but make sure that it is accurate. And then use short, direct sentences so that the readers can quickly understand and memorize the steps. So when you write it shorter, it will be easier. Okay, so for example, if you look at manuals to use certain products, the words or the sentences being projected are short and concise. Okay, because if it is going to be long, it is like an AC. Okay, so it is not really practical. So you can refer to this link later on, okay, to look at the example of SOP. And I'm going to change or switch to the next thing, okay, which is on the Microsoft Word file. Okay, any questions so far, class? Class, any question?
Okay.
Okay, I hope that you are still awake. It is lunchtime. I'm going to end soon, don't worry, so that you can have your early lunch. But at the same time, I need you to stay focused for a while, okay? So I am now sharing the screen with you. So this is standard operating procedure in Microsoft Word form, okay? So you can look at this activity 4.1. You recently bought a flashing emergency light. You need to assemble its electrical components. So what do? Do you use your experience or logic? So do you read the manual or do you use your own instinct? So in this context, for example, if I don't have any background knowledge on how to assemble the electrical components, so I'm going to refer to the manual. But let's say if I know how to work on it, then I will be using my own instinct or experience. Okay, so that is about standard operating procedure. But most of the times, okay, it will be better if you refer to the manual or the SOP. Okay, so the input here, I'm going to skip this because I have explained to you the two types of SOP.
I'm not sure I understand.
What does it mean by SOP? Okay, and then the format of the SOP. All right, so this is for you to know, and this is very important, especially for your next assessment, assessment 2. Okay. All right, so there are several things that you need to put into consideration. Not consideration, but I can say that this is really important for the format of a technical SOP. Okay, even though in the future, when you're going to start working, the company that you are going to work with will have different template of the SOP, but the contents are basically the same. Okay, so number one here, you need to have the reference number. Okay. All right, the date and the page number. So let's say reference number here, maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Okay, make it 95. All right. So The date will be the date that you are going to perform the task. Okay, so let's say it is today, 29 November 2021, for example. Okay, page number, right? Let's assume that your SOP is more than one page. So this is page number 1 out of 5 pages that you have altogether. So page 1 of 5. When you move to the next page or the second page, it is going to be page number, class, this is page 1 of 5.
2 of 5.
Yes, 2 of 5, 3 of 5, 4 of 5, and 5 of 5. So that when you read the SOP, you will know, okay, so this is the SOP and it has 5 pages altogether. And when you scroll through it, okay, you found out that there are only 4 pages. You are missing 1 page. So this is incomplete because it is not 5 pages altogether. So that is the reason why the page number must be there and it follows the sequence. It follows the sequence. So the second page is going to be 2 of 5. The third page, 3 of 5. Fourth page, 4 of 5. And then the final page, 5 of 5. Okay. And the reference number and the date should maintain even though you change to the next pages, except for the page number, you have to change it accordingly. Okay, so I'm going to erase this. Okay, this is just for you to know. Okay, so you need to have the title, standard operating procedure for what? Okay, department or unit, purpose, who can perform this SOP, PPE, personal protective equipment, tools, reference materials, others, and the rest. Okay, prepared by, though that it is not stated in the question paper there, okay, but what you need to do is like this, okay. When you are given this SOP, the template, and you need to fill in the SOP, you need to also add in the designation. What is the meaning of designation here, class? What is the meaning of the word designation? Can someone share with me without Googling it? What is the meaning of the word designation? Class? In Malay, what is it called? Come on, guys.
Jawatan.
Yes, jawatan. Okay, your role in the company. Okay, for example, you are the technician. Okay, so you need to include your name plus your designation. You are the technician there. Okay, reviewed by, over here, who will be your reviewer for the SOP? So maybe your senior technician. Okay, and approved by, maybe it is the production engineer. Right, production engineer. So this is how you're supposed to write it, okay? Your name followed by the designation of your role in the company, your designation in the company, okay? So if it is being prepared by you, you need to write your name and your designation. If it is reviewed by somebody else, then you need to also mention the name and the role of him or her in the company, and the same goes for the approved by, okay? So do not forget to include this information when you are preparing the content. Okay, right. So if you scroll down a bit, how to write a technical SOP, you can see number 1, what do you need to have there? Number 2, okay, for the title, example, standard operating procedure for transferring liquid chemicals. So you use the word for here. Okay, so notice on that thing. Right, or the second option or second example, standard operating procedure for assembling the computer hardware. So still using the the word for. Okay, right. You have the activities over here. You can do this on your own. Then number 3, department or unit. Okay, so this SOP example has been written for the research and development laboratory. So for your next assessment, the question will give you the information. So you need to fill in the information according to what given to you. Okay, for example, the reference number here, if it is stated in the question paper, so you have to use the same reference number given in the question paper. If it is not given, then you can create it on your own. All right. So the same goes for the department or unit over here. If it is given in the question paper, you have to use the same information. Right. Number 4, there are 3 parts to the purpose of the SOP. So the aim or the function of the SOP, this is going to be very important. You need to have it. Without it, it is incorrect. Okay. So who will be your audience? This is optional. And what will be the regulatory standards or the safety measure? And it is also optional. So you must have number 1. This is the most important thing that you need to have when you are writing for the purpose. Okay. For example, given here, the purpose of this SOP is to provide instructions for the safe use of 50% sulfuric acid. So what is the purpose? Safety, or the instruction on how to use 50% sulfuric acid safely. Okay, and then the specific audience here, the worker. Who will be your audiences? All right, so please do not forget when you are writing the purpose, number 1 is very important. Okay, then number 5, the person who can perform the job. Okay, if it is stated in the question paper, just follow it. Or if not, then you can create it based on the suitability. Okay, if it is suitable to put that particular person as the one who will be performing the task, then you can put it there. Okay, you can do the activities on your own. Number 6, PPE tools, reference materials. Okay, so let's say any sort of reading or reference materials that are suggested, that can be suggested, or that has been referred to when the SOP was written, need to be stated in the reference materials. So for the assessment, if it is stated there, this will be your reference for you to create the SOP. So you need to put the name of the reference or the references in the reference materials. Okay. Number 7, the procedure. It looks maybe short, but actually it will be longer. Because why? Okay, as I have mentioned to you, there are 3 kinds of SOP. Number 1 is flowchart SOP. So this is the example of a flowchart SOP down there. Okay. Number 2, graphic SOP, graphical SOP. And lastly, hierarchical SOP. So there are 3 kinds of it. Okay, flowchart, graphical, and hierarchical SOP. Okay, so just to let you know, normally for assessment 2, your next assessment, we are going to use graphical SOP. So take note about that. Okay, person in charge. All right. Okay, as I've mentioned to you, just add in the designation. Okay, though that it is not stated here, but you need to add in the designation. Okay, so this is example of a flowchart SOP. So look at this shape. Okay, these shapes, right? For example, this one, this is for the terminator. Okay, to start or stop the points. Okay, we have start here, and then if you scroll down a bit, then you have the end of it. Okay, if you're referring to the rectangle over here, it is on the process. So hit the engine for 5 minutes, that will be the process. Okay, the diamond shape over here, it is actually for decision making. Yes or no. Okay, so are there any problematic sounds? If there are any sounds, then you're going to write it yes. You move to the next process. Okay, next process, and then maybe you go to the next process after that. Okay, if your answer is no to the question, then you can straight away go to the next process here, for example. Okay. And this is the example of flowchart SOP. And this is how you're going to write it in the template. Okay, you can look at the example given here. Right? So QC engineer, senior QC engineer, general manager, for example. So this is on graphical operating procedure or graphic SOP. Okay, so for graphic SOP, you must start from the left up until to the right hand side of the page. So before alignment, equipment preparation, during alignment, and after alignment. Okay, so for example here, for each of the component here before alignment, you have the process or the procedure. So number one, a shear lab is secured. Number two, mark the laboratory's door with the notice sign. So you're going to have the images at the bottom for each of the procedure. For example here, what is the notice sign? So laser alignment in progress, do not enter eye protection required. So you're going to put the image of this notice sign, for instance. So for each of the procedure under graphic operating procedure, so you need to have the images. And this is what you're going to do for your second assessment. Okay. Next, you have the hierarchical operating procedure format. So you have step number 1, step number 2, step number 3 here, up until the final step. Okay, and this is how you're going to put it in your template. So for graphic operating procedure, it will be the same, whereby you are going to take this template and you put it in the SOP template like this for the procedure. So you're going to replace it here. Okay? All right. So you can do the exercises so that you will have a clearer picture of what you are going to do for your next assessment, and also for the SOP, the contents of the SOP that you're going to work on or work with later on when you are going to start working. For your information, assessment 2 will consist of 2 parts, part A and part B. Part A will be the SOP itself. Part A, okay, for part B, it is going to be listening. So once you have completed the exercises, you can read on tips for listening, whereby maybe next week we are going to start doing exercises on listening so that you are fully prepared for the assessment. Okay, so I believe I have covered everything over here, but in this context, okay, for you, just go through the remaining contents or sources that we have under week 6 over here. For example, sentence structure, you can click on it, okay, and then you can do the activities here, all right? Or you can also click, you can also click imperatives, and we have additional information notes plus exercises, and you can do that, okay? You can also look at the example given here for each of the SOP: chainsaw operation, nail gun, lawnmower, and drill power. Okay, and we have additional activities for history of underground utility tunnels, lactating cow information transfer activity, yes, no question, this is flowchart, and pass alarm information transfer. So week 6 and week 7, okay, I'm combining it both for this week, okay. No specific task yet for our second meeting this week, but I hope that you can go through the materials that we have in week 6 and week 7 in Kalam, and if you have any question, you can ask me. Okay, all right. Any question, class? Before we end our session?
Okay.
Okay, let me double check. Muhammad Hafiz Mustaqim, are you here? Hafiz Mustaqim, are you here? No? Anwin, you are here, right?
I'm here,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Anwin, you are here?
Sir,
Muhammad.
saya Hafiz.
Oh, Hafiz, you are here as well. Okay, Hafiz Mustaqim. All right. Number 5 in the name list, Muhammad Najmi Naim, are you here? Najmi Naim is not here. Number 17, Muhammad Al-Haziq, are you here? Muhammad Al-Haziq? Okay, you are not here. Number 18 in the name list, Muhammad Hazim bin Abdul Rahim. Are you here? Hazim is not here as well. Number 25, Wan Nur Faris Iskandar. Are you here? Not here. Jessica, are you here? Not here as well. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay, all right. All right, class. So if you don't have any other question, I'm going to stop the recording for our session today. All right, and then if you have any questions